Okay, so everyone can hear me okay? Yeah? Excellent. Thought I'd just start with that, because there's some funny elements there. NASA always gives that as an excuse for anything that you see in the sky. It's always a weather balloon. So, and of course the Bible Belt, nice car sticker there, which I thought was an excellent one. I don't know if you can read that, but it's an inconvenient truth or a reassuring lie. So you can see which one they... Okay, so what I've tried to do is to split this into three sections. One is truth masquerading as belief, which takes in religion, politics, social and tribal truths, and truth masquerading as mind or intellect, scientific dogmas and pseudosciences. And thirdly, hopefully spiritual truth, with the mask removed. Belief is the enemy of truth. Let me give you a dictionary definition here, which I would just like to read to emphasize certain words within it. Assent or a proposition or affirmation, or the acceptance of a fact, opinion or assertion as real or true, but without immediate personal knowledge. Reliance upon word or testimony, partial or full assurance, without positive knowledge or absolute certainty. This is not good enough for spiritual truth, gnosis if you like. This is the paradigm of religion. It is often used along with the words faith or trust. This is the antithesis of gnosis. We all have beliefs, but they are provisional and false, useful to try to make sense of the world for a time, but an imperfect tool. For those who are computer literate, belief is a bit like RAM memory. When you turn off the computer, the RAM memory is cleared. Beliefs work in a similar way. They are of the lower mind and die with the personality. Belief is often associated with consensus, social, mythical, tribal truths. These truths tend to be reinforced by fear, ignorance, or simply a yearning for a sense of belonging, or all three. We tend to internalize the beliefs of other people around us during childhood. It is said that common sense is the collection of prejudices acquired by the age 18. Political beliefs depend most strongly on the political beliefs most common in the community where we live. Most individuals believe the religion or ideology they are taught in childhood. If you're born on the other side of the war here, you're a Jew and an Israeli. Born 100 yards on the other side of the war, you're a Palestinian and a Muslim. To me, it's a real tragedy, a form of child abuse, when someone turns around and says, this is a Christian child, or this is a Muslim child. No, to me, that miracle of life is simply a child of the universe, here to seek his or her path to truth. An enforced comment or fact stated by a parent or elder can be accepted as gospel by a child and stay with them for the rest of their life and not question it. An unkind teacher may make a damning remark and affect a child's confidence for the rest of their life. We humans are very susceptible to these kinds of experiences, as we are tribal creatures and have a very strong desire to fit and conform, even if freedom and truth are sacrificed. It takes a very brave individual, usually a mature person with less to lose, or a shaman to stand outside the tribe when the tribe is patently in error and not listening. An obvious example of this is the history of religion. Theocracies instilling their beliefs. You accept our version of the truth, or you are a heretic, convicted of treason and burnt at the stake. This was the European Christian response if you stepped out of line. An obvious example, as far as the idea of heresy is from the Greek, originally meaning choice or thing chosen. But it came to mean the party or school of a man's choice, and also referred to the process whereby a young man would examine various philosophies to determine how to live. So I'm proud to be a heretic. The religious schools say our beliefs and your loyalties are far more important than the search for truth. We've often heard, stop asking difficult questions, just accept it. Or as one master said to me, when I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. This was also graphically played out in the 20th century in the form of communism, fascism, and the totalitarian regimes. And it is alive and well today. Just look at North Korea and America. These truths should never be questioned, or you're made out to be a nut, or antisocial, or subversive, or a troublemaker. These pressures are equally great today in our Western society. If properly set up with the right propaganda and mass mind guidance techniques and disinformation, governments along with mass media, corporations, can create a subtle social consensus among the sleeping masses who will believe almost anything they are told and will regurgitate it at will. I'll come to one or two prime examples in a moment. Also, have you noticed there is so much selective wall-to-wall information out there now? No one has any time to take on board the full implications of any incident, unless you are directly affected. Momentary outrage, quickly forgotten. We can become anaesthetised, especially on a global scale. The room for manipulation is very great. We get a general feel for what is happening, but you become numb to the reality. As I said, we are communal, tribal creatures, not global gods, not yet. 52 people were killed in Baghdad today. In my day it was Vietnam. It hardly raises an eyebrow. We have become so dormant and befuddled that it doesn't really matter anymore. We are faced with, for the first time in history, with so much information input and disinformation, but with no arbiter of truth. There is also a real danger of distortion, or one event outstripping another, and other stories being buried. This is a real task for our perception. And just to cite two examples. 100 years ago today, the First World War started. Or Britain came into the First World War today. It was actually 1 week ago, 100 years ago. But also, in 1918, there was a flu epidemic. The first of two pandemics involving H1N1 influenza viruses. It affected 500 million people across the world, including the remote Pacific Islands to the Arctic, and killed between 50 and 100 million people. 3 to 5% of the world population. making it one of the deadliest natural disasters in human history. It was called the Spanish flu because it was censored by governments in the other European countries at the time due to maintaining military morale. In a 3-year period, around 1960, in my lifetime, 30 to 40 million people starved to death in China. And this did not even register on the consciousness of the West. The challenge we face today is that global perception of truth is placed in the hands of very few. Large corporations, banks and big business run this world, putting their own interests first, allowing politicians to present an illusion of democracy. We have our spiritual life within this Maya. And how do we deal with such things? Do we just move on? In researching this talk, I came across the definition of Orwellian, and it was quite sobering, which I believe actually arrived in 2001. They've classified the adjective Orwellian as the behaviour of the party, especially the party as the state. Now, we've all read the book and all had that sort of the academic background, but it's very sobering if you actually look at these now. Invasion of personal privacy, either directly, physically, or indirectly by surveillance. Does anyone have Facebook? Does anyone use Windows? Etc., etc.? Yeah? State control of citizens' daily life as Big Brother. When in London, when I went to work, I used to have my photograph taken 300 times on the way to work. This one, I think, was particularly sobering. Official encouragement of policies contributing to social economic disintegration of the family. Now, I think we really have seen that in the last 10, 20 years. Adoration of state leaders and their party, well, that may be slightly exaggerated with Cameron and Obama, but from using words themselves, encouragement of doublethink, whereby the population must learn to embrace inconsistent concepts without dissent. Also, the terms of doublespeak and newspeak, you've often seen this. The spin is one of the words which comes up. The revision of history in favour of state interpretation of it. If anyone's got any children and they've got the national curriculum, I think that's a particular idea of what happened in history. And a dystopian future. Again, if you've got young children or teenagers who are trying to make it in the world, it's quite dystopian at the moment. And the other one, which I'm sure when we come to the politically correct, we can all come out with different ideas there, euphemisms describing. Department that wages war is a ministry of peace. Yeah, and people who are short are vertically challenged, aren't they? And all sorts of other terms. Differently abled was one I came across. So, let me just give you one example of psychological control. You must remember that all this psychology and everything else that goes on is not only us doing degrees in psychology and helping people, but governments do it as well. Now, as one example, the media has coined and planted in the minds of people a very negative, self-defeating term. When I say the word, you will know exactly what I mean, okay? Conspiracy. Yeah? Which in NLP terms is an anchor. It's a viral meme that when heard sets off the following very powerful algorithm in the mind, which I have witnessed many times. It is an old trick. Take a word with bad connotation, link it to a subject, and that subject becomes negative by association. We all know it from HPB, charlatan. Yeah, linking words. Anytime it comes up, somebody will mention it. Yeah. Once the word conspiracy is used, the algorithm is set off and runs something like this. I'm not listening to what this person is about to say, because it emotionally threatens my comfort zone. Therefore, I'll ignore any data. It can't possibly be true because my loved ones and tribe have not sanctioned it. He or she is a nut. They're not discerning. It is rubbish, or at least they're gullible. I know I am right. Now, just to show, and I can't go into it, it will take far too long, but here is an example of psychological mugging, okay? Actual psychological mugging. What is done in this short clip is words are brought together into one concept that don't live together. But by the time you see it, it just goes straight through into the unconscious and people just take it on board. I'm sure you remember this.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
Outrageous conspiracy.
Concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty.
Terrorists, guilty. Yeah? All these juxtapositions that are brought together. What never seems to enter the mind on hearing this word is it a true conspiracy or is it a false conspiracy? Yeah? Because the word conspiracy is actually neutral. Do you think you're going to stand a chance against the powerful embedded prejudicial algorithm? And this is just one small example. What is shocking, you can usually tell within a few sentences when speaking to a person whether they're actually listening or whether they're just turning on algorithms that have been implanted. It's very interesting, especially if it's an emotive subject, or political, or social, etc. So look out for these weasel words. We know this, the word occult once had a benign meaning, but you have to be very careful how to use that word today. I remember one evangelical of a southern Baptist church, and when the word occult and theosophy was mentioned, he said, well, I don't know how I can do the accent, but he said, they're all Satanists, they're devil worshippers. Some of them are even Buddhists. The obvious prime example of conspiracy was the burning of the Reichstag, the Bear Tonkin incident, assassination of Kennedy, 9/11, and weapons of mass destruction. Now, unless you're confused by all the wealth of disinformation and untruth around, the Nazis did in fact burn down the Reichstag. The Bear Tonkin never happened, and that was the excuse that brought America into the Vietnam War. The assassination of Kennedy was a staged high-level coup d'etat, not just a lone gunman. And 9/11 was an inside job. Well, 40 years of physics, controlled demolition and building construction just simply goes out the window. And let's not talk about Building 7, so they didn't ever talk about it. Unfortunately, like I say, I'm not going to go into this at all, but you see this one here in the middle, that awkward moment the BBC screwed up? Yeah, I saw this. That was a live broadcast from New York on the day. And underneath, Building 7 has been demolished, has been taken down. Yeah? Only problem is, Building 7 is actually behind her. It didn't come down for another hour. They screwed up the timing between the UK and America. Just one tiny example, but it just goes to show, you know, we watch the news, we see all this information, and we take it in. You know, But if we take a little bit of time and look at these facts, it's quite surprising what we find. So sure, be skeptical. Examine the raw data with an open mind. Believe nothing. Listen to your intuition. Don't just believe the government or media or the consensus. They all have their agendas and lies. But more importantly, ask yourself every time, in this web of Maya, can I trust anything anybody tells me? Are these my own thoughts, or something I am assuming or have never questioned? Can I approach this with complete, unprejudiced, open mind? Or as in this, can I actually handle the truth, however unpalatable? A few good men. I mean, it's a brilliant... Now I need to cut this section very short, but personally I was exposed to this kind of experience in 2004. I was introduced to convincing scientific evidence that proved that the consensus view about something was completely wrong, a lie. This places you in a very difficult and very sobering position. Do you keep quiet, or become a martyr, or do even others care? One thing it does, it gives you an insight into the working of the media machine and the establishment. And I've never trusted an official story since. When the word global is used these days, it is a euphemism, for no one is responsible. We are currently in a world where global monopolies are destroying our lives with greed and acting as a catalyst for the new age. Monsanto is destroying crop diversity and patenting nature. The banking industry is now a parasite, making us poor and destroying livelihoods. The energy companies have been destroying innovation to maintain their oil monopolies. And of particular interest of mine, the nuclear industry could be revolutionized and the dangers resolved by using thorium instead of uranium. However, this has effectively been banned by the military establishment, as they still need weapons-grade plutonium, which is not a byproduct of thorium reactors. And on this wickedness goes. These things are affecting everyone. Politics won't solve anything anymore. They're just puppets. What must occur is a complete sea change from the individual up. The bringing in of a raw spirit, of a new spiritual age, now manifesting in the physical realm. Look at the revolution that took place 2,000 years ago with the incoming spirit, the Piscean spiritual age. The old pagan world was destroyed, and a dominant religion took over, which plunged us into the Dark Ages. This new age is also stirring today. But are we going to be at the party? Or do we leave it to the new ages and rest on our past laurels? We all know that the individual must change first before society can change. We all know the story of Krishna and Arjuna on the eve of the great Mahabharata battle. Is this world just some rotten, sadistic summer camp for suffering? Is it just a fairground ride? The Buddha teachings of the Four Noble Truths recognize that this is not a place to hang around, and one should move on when one knows how. We Gnostics are often criticized as being pessimistic about life in the world. In the Gospel of Thomas, Lord John 80 says, "Whoever has come to know the world has found a corpse." In the hymn of the Robe of Glory, translated by D.S.R. Mead, "If thou goest down into Egypt, a place far from the kingdom, to undertake a hero's task. Again, not a place to hang around. This world is an arena. It is not a home. So is the concern for the world relevant? Why are we here? Is it to learn a lesson, be compassionate and move on? Probably. When the founders of the TS started the society and the masters intervened, it was at a very important time in mankind's evolution, placing the TS between a rock and a hard place. The rock, Darwin, Newtonian scientific materialism, and the hard place being the established religion. Theosophy played an important role that showed a third way of evolvement and gave birth to the new age and brought together wisdom from East and West. It helped revise Buddhism and bring it to the West. It reintroduced the concepts of karma and incarnation, proposed the three fundamental propositions with great clarity. These things are soaked into society, like multiculturalism has today. It has given solace to genuine seekers an alternative path, not dominated by either science or religious dogma. Thus our motto, no religion, dogma or ideology higher than truth. Theosophy is an ideal vehicle for this search for truth, and we are far better placed than most to approach the subject. Theosophy is non-dogmatic. No one is asked to believe anything. Much of our understanding is not mainstream. This now brings me to the second part of this talk. And very interesting, there must be synchronicities after Tim's talk yesterday where he mentioned Rupert Sheldrake and the science delusion. I don't know how many people have read the book or come across the book. It's very, very interesting. Just before I come on to that, obviously HPB in The Voice of the Silence says the mind is the great slayer of the real. Let the disciples slay the slayer. And to quote Peruka, what brings about diversity of feeling and opinion among human beings? What is it that prevents us receiving a greater truth than that which we now have? Preconceptions, prejudice, dogmas, feelings against this and that, the mind. What is it preventing intuition from flowing to human consciousness in a steady stream? It's the mind which it must pass. Just going on the science delusion. The main thesis of the book is the science delusion is a belief that science already understands the nature of reality in principle, leaving only the details to be filled in. This is a widespread belief in our society. It is a kind of belief system of people who say, I don't believe in God, I believe in science. It is a belief system that has spread throughout the entire world. But there is a conflict at the heart of science between science as a method of inquiry based on reason, evidence, hypothesis, collective investigation, and science as a belief system or a worldview. And unfortunately, the worldview aspect of science has come to inhibit and constrict the free inquiry, which is the very lifeblood of scientific endeavour. Since the late 19th century, science has been conducted under the aspect of a belief system, a worldview which is essentially that of materialism or philosophical materialism. Interestingly, it was also in HPB's day when science thought it had answered everything from a Newtonian perspective, only to be blown apart by a paradigm shift with the insight of relativity and quantum physics. Strangely enough, these two theories that can't be reconciled both give a very accurate picture of the physical world, one macroscopic and one microscopic, both true but disconnected, and tell very different stories. This is like the old thing about the elephant in the room, that science has got, one has got the tail and one has got the ear, and no one has discovered the elephant yet. And this is where Theosophy comes in. Now, he puts forward 10 dogmas, if you like, and I have to go through these very quickly, but what I've done is also put a theosophical understanding underneath, directly underneath each one, or hopefully something that approaches that. The universe is mechanical or machine-like. Well, I would say the universe is a living being. Matter is unconscious. There is no such thing as dead matter. The laws of nature are fixed. The laws of nature change over time. The total amount of matter and energy is always the same. That is very debatable, it's beyond this, but there's more to just the physical plane. That nature is purposeless. The purpose of life is experience, expression, and the return to the source. Biological heredity is material, it's only partly material. Memories are stored inside the brain as material traces. Memories are not stored in the brain. The mind is inside your head. Your mind is not in your brain. I mean, these are all complete opposites to the way that we look at things. Psychic phenomena, like telepathy, is impossible. Well, we know psychic phenomena exists. And of course, that one's bound to get riled with a lot of people. Mechanistic medicine is the only kind that really works. Mechanistic medicine has its place, but is limited. So this is the science approach. This is the theosophical approach. But moreover, this is the default worldview which is held by almost all educated people all over the world. It's the basis of the education system, the National Health Service, Medical Research Council, and governments. A default view. Science is a method, nothing more. It's a method of inquiry based on reason, evidence, hypothesis, and investigation. And can the experiment be repeated? This to me is a normal way one would conduct one's life anyway. There's nothing new there. But two of the many problems with science. Firstly, it only works if there is something to measure. Therefore, by definition, it can only examine the physical world. Secondly, science tends to do a very bad job when it comes to extrapolation. E.g., there is no evidence for the existence of fairies. Therefore, they do not exist. This is an extrapolation. You can state that to your knowledge there is no evidence for fairies, but you can't therefore claim that they do not exist. While science still only has an ear and a tail, it is in no position to speculate or extrapolate about the elephant in the room. And of course the difference is that Theosophy cheated and already knew it was an elephant in the first place. Don't get me wrong, science is our ally, as Tim was saying yesterday, or as HPB said. It is an enjoyable method of inquiry and has brought man out of the religious dark ages of superstition and fearing tribal gods. But on the other hand, it has also killed off some of the magic and obscured the meaning. Science tries to describe the physical world, but science lacks meaning. A physicist will see his truth within physics. A geneticist will see his truth within genetics. A microbiologist will see his truth through microbiology. A psychologist will just be confused. But a theosophist should see the truth through the full spectrum of man's experiences. Unfortunately, all too often, science tends to suffer from a lack of imagination and creativity. Linear thought, or as one described it, a kind of left-brain autism. Einstein had the right idea. He said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. When I examine myself and my methods of thought, I come to the conclusion that the gift of fantasy has meant more to me than any talent for abstract or positive thinking. The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. This is a great joy of Theosophy. You're required to use all your faculties for applying the scientific method, exploring your imagination, listening to your intuition, and letting go your creativity. From the wild speculation to extreme subtle nuances. Play like a child, break the bonds of conformity, plunge off the cliff of familiarity and surf new realms. Leave your comfort zone behind, forge new neuro pathways. Be confused, frustrated, exacerbated, give up and climb the mountain again. As the pursuit of truth and beauty is a sphere of activity in which we are permitted to remain children all our lives. Never stop wondering. And finally, this brings us to the third, the spiritual truth. C.G. Jung said, "Those that look outside dream. Those that look inside awake." Truth is an inward journey without words. Truth is everlasting. It does not vary or change. It is the absolute, the unity of everything that was, is, and will be, our true home. From my talk last year on unity, unity is the greatest and most profound truth, the greatest mystery that man can know. It is so deceptively simple and direct. Man sees through it, but does not see it at all. HPB said that unless we keep the idea of unity in our mind like a mantra, a burning flame at all time, all knowledge eventually becomes fragmented, meaningless, and futile. When Sri Krishna revealed himself to Arjuna, his revelation was like the light of 1,000 suns in the sky. As Arjuna looked at him, he saw all the worlds, all the gods, the universe, the one, filled with awe. And Arjuna agreed to fight. In the mundane, ordinary material world, there is no truth. Search in vain as you might, you will never find it. This world is not about truth. It is about change, illusion, and suffering. The first of the noble truths explains the nature of suffering, and is said to have the following three aspects. The obvious physical and mental suffering associated with birth and growing old and illness and dying. The second, the anxiety or stress trying to hold on to things that are constantly changing. And thirdly, a basic unsatisfactoriness pervading all forms of existence, due to the fact that all forms of life are changing, impermanent, and without any inner core or substance. On this level, the term indicates a lack of satisfaction, a sense that things never measure up to our expectations or standards. In this physical realm, all we can do is create a mental model that maps to our environment. The closer we are, the chances of survival increases. Remember the Gnostic message in the Matrix films. Morpheus says, What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. What is real? What do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste, and what you can see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by the mind, by the brain. So, in conclusion, Buddha is reputed to have said, "Don't blindly believe what I say. Don't believe me because others convince you of my words. Don't believe anything you see, read, or hear from others, whether of authority, religious teachers, or texts. Don't rely on logic alone, nor speculation. Don't infer or be deceived by appearances. Do not give up your authority or follow blindly the will of others. They will lead only to delusion. Find out for yourself what is truth, what is real. Discover that there are virtuous things and there are non-virtuous things. Once you have discovered for yourself, give up the bad and embrace the good." And I'd like to finish with two short clips and some very insightful quotes. "The obscure we see eventually. The completely obvious, it seems, takes much, much longer." Edward Murrow. "Losing an illusion makes you wiser than finding a truth." And from Ram Dass, of all people, "If you think you're free, there's no escape possible." And from the founder of quantum physics, "The opposite of a correct statement is a false statement. But the opposite of a profound truth may well be another profound truth." I mean, we can't leave out the Zen Buddhists, because they always do a nice short tweet from there. "Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water." You can spend many lives seeking truth, but you can also be gained in an instant. This is one of the great occult mysteries of life. Things happen not according to your timing and perception, and these things move in mysterious ways. The truth originates from the source and progressively becomes distorted further it is away from that source. To seek that truth, seek the source, and know thyself. It is one and the same. The sound on this may not be good, but I think most of you might know this.
Oh, we were
CGM.
And did he make you attend church regularly? Oh, well, that was quite natural. Everybody went to church on Sunday. And did you believe in God?
Oh, yes.
Do you now believe in God?
Now? It's difficult to answer. I know. I don't need to believe. I know.
And lastly, this was taken from a Eckhart Tolle convention, took place in 2006 or whatever. I don't know if people know Jim Carrey as an American film star. And I do recommend seeing the Truman Show, the film The Truman Show at some time. Very, very Gnostic in itself. But I'll leave you with this. I can find the... I wish I could perform like this guy. you know. But this really sums the whole thing up.
A few months ago, after knowing Eckhart Tolle for a while and studying the books, I woke up and I suddenly got it. I understood suddenly how thought was just an illusory thing. And how thought is responsible for, if not all, most of the suffering we experience. And then I suddenly felt like I was looking at these thoughts from another perspective. And I wondered, who is it that's aware that I'm thinking? And suddenly I was thrown into this expansive, amazing feeling of freedom from myself, from my problems. I saw that I was bigger than what I do. I was bigger than my body. I was everything and everyone. I was no longer a fragment of the universe. I was the universe. And ever since that day, I've been trying to get back there. It comes and it goes. It's like riding a wave. Sometimes I'm on, sometimes I'm off. But at least I know where I want to go. And that I want to take as many people with me as I possibly can, because the feeling is amazing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.